I was never the kind of man who stood out in a crowd. I worked hard, paid my taxes, kept my promises. I married young, raised a daughter, and stayed faithful to a life most people would call ordinary. But to me, it was everything. I woke up early every morning, brewed the same cup of black coffee, and kissed the same woman goodbye for nearly 20 years. I wasn't rich. We never had much. But we had enough, and we had love. That's what mattered. My job wasn't glamorous. I worked maintenance at a local school. Pipes, wires, broken tiles, I fixed what needed fixing. People didn't always notice, but I liked that. It meant things were working. That quiet kind of pride kept me going. And then there was my daughter. She was the light in my life. Every birthday, every school play, every scraped knee, those memories are carved deep into me. She used to wait at the window for me to come home, waving with both arms like I was the most important man in the world. That kind of love, it gives a man purpose. A reason to push through the hard days. I never thought it would end. I never imagined that one day I'd walk past that same house and feel like a stranger. I wasn't raised to show emotion. My father believed a real man kept his feelings locked behind his ribs and only opened that door when no one was looking. But when my daughter was born, something in me broke open, in the best way. I cried in the hospital room. Big, ugly tears. I remember holding her, this tiny bundle wrapped in pink, and thinking, this is it. This is what I was made for. From the moment she could walk, she followed me everywhere, into the garage, out to the yard, even when I went to the store for nails or a gallon of milk. She called me her hero, and for a long time, I believed her. My wife, too, was the kind of partner a man hopes for. We didn't always agree, but we laughed a lot. She understood the kind of man I was, simple, steady. I didn't buy flowers every week or write poems, but I fixed her car in the cold and shoveled the walkway before she got up for work. That was my way of loving. Our house wasn't big, but it was loud, with laughter, music, the TV too high, and my daughter dancing barefoot in the kitchen. Some nights we all fell asleep on the couch, arms tangled up like we were still trying to hold on to every moment. And I did hold on. Too tightly, maybe. Because when things started to shift, I wasn't ready. I kept thinking, families don't fall apart. Not good ones. But I was wrong. Looking back, the signs were there. They weren't loud or obvious. They crept in like a slow leak behind a wall, silent, steady, and dangerous. It started with the silence. Conversations at dinner turned into one-word answers. My daughter, once so eager to share every part of her day, started retreating into her room. I'd knock gently on her door and ask if she wanted to go for a drive, just the two of us, like we used to. She'd smile politely and say she was tired, or had homework, or wasn't feeling well. Then there were the whispers. I'd walk into a room and feel the air shift. My wife and daughter would exchange a glance, one of those wordless looks that tells you you've missed something important. I'd ask what was going on, and they'd say, nothing. Always nothing. I started to feel like a guest in my own home. But instead of confronting it, I told myself it was just a phase. Teenagers pull away. Wives get tired. Life gets busy. That's what I told myself. Because the truth, that I was slowly being shut out, was too hard to face. And then came the man from church. At first, I thought nothing of it. He was just the new pastor. He seemed kind, maybe a little too charming, but I wasn't one to judge. My wife started attending Bible study again, and my daughter followed. I was glad they were finding comfort in faith. But soon, it felt like this man was everywhere. In our conversations. In their decisions. In the way they started looking at me, not with love, but with pity. As if I had somehow failed them without even knowing it. I should have spoken up. I should have asked harder questions. But I didn't. Because deep down, I was afraid of the answers. It didn't happen all at once. That's the cruel part. If the door had slammed shut in a single day, maybe I would have reacted differently. Maybe I would have fought harder. But the changes came like falling snow, soft, quiet, and slow until one day, I looked around and didn't recognize the life I was living. Little things disappeared first. My coffee mug, the one my daughter gave me for Father's Day when she was 7, ended up in a donation box. I found it by accident in the garage. The chair where I watched my shows was moved to the back porch to make space. My tools were packed into bins without asking. Even the dinner table felt foreign. They started eating without me. No warning. Just a quiet plate left on the counter. Like I was a tenant in their house, someone to be managed, not included. And conversations? They became colder. Shorter. Everything I said seemed to annoy them. If I mentioned how I was feeling, I was being dramatic. If I asked about their day, I was prying. If I sat in silence, I was moody. I began to question myself. Was I too old-fashioned? Too rigid? Had I missed something, some rule about how to be a better husband, a better father? But I wasn't perfect, I knew that. I worked hard. I stayed faithful. I showed up. Isn't that what fathers are supposed to do? Still, it felt like I was failing a test no one told me I was taking. And the person grading it wasn't talking to me anymore. It was a Sunday afternoon, quiet, cloudy, the kind of day you just want to rest. I was in the garage, fixing a loose handle on the cabinet. It felt good to use my hands, to focus on something simple. Then I heard raised voices inside the house. At first, I ignored it. They argued sometimes, about chores, about church, about things I didn't understand. But something about the tone this time felt different. Sharper. I walked in and asked if everything was okay. My daughter turned to me with this look, this strange, unreadable expression. And my wife said, without blinking, "We need to talk." I sat down at the table, and the moment I did, I knew I wasn't going to like what came next. They said I was negative. That I made them feel like they were walking on eggshells. That I didn't support them anymore. I was stunned. Support? I worked 10-hour days to keep that house running. I missed promotions to be at my daughter's recitals. I bit my tongue more times than I could count just to keep the peace. But when I opened my mouth to defend myself, it was like I was already guilty. My daughter stood up and shouted, "You don't even try to understand us anymore." That broke me. Because I had tried. I tried every day to hold the family together in my quiet, clumsy way. I just didn't speak the language they had started using, the language of blame and distance. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just got up and walked outside. And for the first time, I didn't know if I wanted to walk back in. It wasn't planned. I didn't pack a bag or leave a note. I just walked. I remember the air that morning, cool, with a hint of rain. I hadn't slept. My mind kept circling that argument like a vulture, picking it apart, trying to understand how things had gone so wrong. How I had gone so wrong. My boots hit the pavement harder than usual. I passed the corner store, the church, the school where I used to wait in the parking lot to pick her up. All those places held pieces of our life, and now they just stared back at me like ghosts. I ended up at the lake. Sat on a bench. Watched the water move in silence. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a father. Or a husband. I felt like a man who had been pushed out of his own story. I didn't go back that night. I stayed at a motel near the highway, cheap place, smelled like smoke. But it was quiet. Nobody expected anything from me there. No one looked disappointed when I walked through the door. I thought maybe, just maybe, a little space would help. That after a few days apart, they'd call. Or at least ask if I was okay. But no one did. And I didn't reach out either. Pride? Fear? Maybe both. One day turned into three. 3 into a week. And suddenly, I had a drawer at the motel. And no home. After 2 weeks, I finally called. My hands were shaking as I held the phone. I didn't even know what I was going to say, just that I needed to hear her voice. I called my daughter first. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. I waited an hour, then texted her. Just want to talk. I miss you. Nothing. So I called my wife. She answered. Cold. Distant. I asked if we could meet, just talk, no pressure. She sighed and said, "I think it's better if we all have some space." Some space? I was living in a motel eating vending machine snacks for dinner. I had all the space in the world. I wrote letters. 3 of them. Honest, from the heart. I walked up to the house and dropped them in the mailbox myself. No response. I tried the church too. Thought maybe the pastor would help bridge the gap. But when I showed up for Sunday service, the stares were icy. He shook my hand with that fake smile people wear when they've already made up their minds about you. It hit me then, I wasn't welcome anymore. They had already moved on. I was the only one standing still. But I kept hoping. Every birthday. Every holiday. I left messages. Sent small gifts. I even drove by the house once, parked across the street, and watched the lights go on and off. No one looked out the window. No one saw me. That was the first time I felt truly invisible. It was a Wednesday. Late afternoon. I was lying on the motel bed, staring at the ceiling, half watching the news. I hadn't left the room all day. Didn't feel like it. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, thought it was a scam or another dead end. But something told me to pick up. It was a neighbor from the old street. Mr. Fletcher. We hadn't spoken in months, maybe longer. His voice was low and uneasy. He said, "Hey! I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but there was some kind of commotion at your old house. An argument. Yelling. And then a call to the police. I thought you should know." I sat up straight. "Is everyone okay?" I asked. "I think so. But I saw your daughter." She looked upset. Shaken. "The cop showed up, but I don't know what came of it. Just thought you'd want to hear it from someone who still gives a damn." That last part hit me hard. I thanked him and hung up. My mind was racing. What happened? Why was there yelling? Why the police? I didn't know if I should go. Would they even let me near the house? But I grabbed my coat, got in my truck, and started driving. It had been months. But the road still knew the way. When I pulled up to the house, the flashing lights were already off, but the squad car was still there, parked just a few feet from the curb, engine running. I stayed in the truck for a moment, gripping the wheel, heart pounding. I didn't know what I was walking into. I just knew my daughter might be in trouble, and I wasn't going to sit on the sidelines again. As I stepped out, the front door of the house opened. A young officer stood on the porch, speaking calmly with someone just out of view. Then he turned and started down the steps, toward me. He was tall, probably in his early 30s. Sharp eyes. Alert. I raised my hand slightly, instinctively. "Sir," he called out, "are you a relative?" "I'm her father," I said, voice cracking. He looked at me for a moment, as if studying my face. I watched something shift in his expression, recognition, maybe. Or something heavier. He took a breath. Then he said it. "Ah. Yeah. I get it now." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He lowered his voice. "Let's just say. This kind of call? I've been to a few. And when I saw her face. And now yours. I get it. No need to explain." I wanted to ask what he meant, really meant, but something in his tone told me it was layered. He wasn't accusing me. He wasn't blaming anyone. It was more like he'd seen this kind of heartbreak before. The kind that doesn't make the report. He nodded toward the house. "They're calm now. No one's hurt. But maybe it's best if you don't go in. Not tonight." I looked past him at the window. She was there. My daughter. Older, tired, but still her. She didn't wave. She just turned away. There was something in that officer's eyes that stuck with me. Not judgment. Not pity, exactly. It was deeper than that. Like he'd seen 100 versions of my story, different names, different faces, same ending. It made me wonder how many fathers like me had stood in that same spot, watching their families fade behind locked doors, while someone in uniform offered that quiet, heavy phrase, "I get it." What did he see in me? A man who gave up? A man who stayed too long? A man who didn't see it coming? Maybe all of it. Maybe none of it. We stood there for a moment, just two men caught in the middle of something broken. He didn't press me with questions. He didn't ask if I had caused any harm. I think he could tell. Whatever had cracked that family open, it hadn't happened in a single moment. It had been erosion. Slow. Relentless. The officer finally nodded, gave me a small, respectful pat on the arm, and got into his car. As he drove off, I stayed there on the sidewalk. For a long time. Just watching the house. The lights were on, but the curtains were drawn. And for the first time, I realized, maybe she wasn't waiting for me anymore. Maybe she hadn't been for a long time. Time has a cruel way of revealing what pride hides. In the weeks after that night, I started piecing things together. Conversations I had brushed off. Looks I had ignored. Choices I had justified in the name of being the man of the house. I realized I had been present, but not always available. I had provided, but not always listened. I had loved them, but not always in the way they needed to be loved. Those truths. They don't come with fireworks. They arrive like a cold wind through a cracked window, quiet, sharp, and impossible to ignore once you feel it. I found out later that the pastor had slowly become a kind of second father to my daughter. He was always there. Always listening. Always offering words that sounded wiser than mine. And maybe they were. I wasn't threatened by him at first. Maybe I should have been. Or maybe I should have looked in the mirror and asked why someone else's words felt warmer than mine. That's the part no one tells you about being a father. You can love your child with everything you have, and still miss what they truly need. By the time I understood that, the damage was already done. And the saddest part? No one meant to hurt anyone. We were all just trying to protect our own pain. People think silence is peaceful. It's not. Real silence, the kind that settles in your chest when the phone doesn't ring, when no one says your name, when no one needs you anymore. That silence is deafening. I moved into a small apartment above a mechanic's shop. One room, small kitchen, no pictures on the walls. I told myself I liked the quiet. That I needed time to think. But thinking turned into remembering. And remembering turned into regret. I still check my phone every morning. Still glance at the mailbox hoping there's a card, a note, something from her. There never is. On her birthday, I left a gift at the church. Just a small box with a note that said, "From Dad." No expectations. Just love. I don't know if she ever got it. No one ever called. I sit in the same booth at the diner every Sunday. The waitress knows my order. Sometimes she asks how I'm doing, and I lie. Not because I want to, but because I don't want to become someone else's burden. Some nights, I walk past my old street. Lights still on in the house. Curtains drawn. Life moving forward. Without me. They say time heals. But some wounds don't close. They just learn how to live in the quiet. If I could sit across from her, just once more, I wouldn't start with explanations. I wouldn't defend myself. I wouldn't ask her to remember the good times or list the things I did right. I'd just say, "I'm sorry." Not for leaving. Not for staying too long. Not even for what I did or didn't do. I'd say sorry for the space between us. For not seeing her pain when it was still small enough to fix. I'd tell her that I still see her as that little girl in the kitchen, twirling in her pajamas, singing off-key to songs on the radio. That when I close my eyes, that's who she is to me. Always. I'd tell her I never stopped being her father. Even when the world said I wasn't needed. Even when I wasn't welcome. Even now. I wouldn't ask her to forgive me. That's hers to decide. But I'd thank her, for loving me once. For teaching me what it meant to be needed. And for giving me the only title I ever truly cared about, Dad. And then I'd listen. Even if it hurt. Even if she had nothing to say. Because maybe that's what being a father really means in the end, showing up, quietly, and staying. Even when you're no longer the hero in the story. I may not live in that house anymore. I may not be on the guest list for birthdays or holidays. I may never hear the word Dad spoken in my direction again. But I'm still a father. That title doesn't expire with distance. It doesn't vanish with silence. It stays with you, in your chest, in your hands, in every quiet moment when you wonder if they're okay. I still carry her in my heart. Every day. I don't know if she'll ever reach out. I don't know if we'll ever sit at the same table again or laugh about something old and familiar. But if that day ever comes, even 20 years from now, I'll be there. Because love doesn't quit. Not real love. And to all the parents out there who feel forgotten or pushed aside, you're not alone. Your story matters. Even the broken parts. And if this story meant something to you. If it reminded you of your own father. Or if you just believe that second chances should never come too late. Please like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps this message reach more people who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening.